we're going to be talking about today is setting up different language keyboards on your phone. So if you're someone who communicates in multiple languages, who maybe sends texts and emails or does something like language learning with an app like Duolingo, it can be really, really helpful to have multiple different language keyboards on your phone. So I'm going to show you how to set those up. We're going to start with Android, not because I'm biased, it's just because that's what I use. So that's what I usually start with. And then we'll talk about how to do it on iPhone. All right, so this is how you add a language keyboard to on Android. I want to say too that what we're going to be using is GBoard, which is the Google version. It's like the Google keyboard, which you can also use on iPhones, but iPhone has its own sort of way of doing it with its default keyboard, which I'll show you as well. So depending on what kind of phone you have a built-in keyboard. Like I have a Samsung keyboard, but I always actually like go and use my GBoard one. I just like the setup of GBoard better, and I find it way, way, way easier to switch between languages on the GBoard keyboard as opposed to my Samsung one. So we're going to start out by making sure you have your GBoard set as your default keyboard. I think if you have a relatively new Android phone, it should have GBoard pre-installed on it as one of the options for your keyboard. It might even be the one that is the default one or the one that you use primarily already. But just in case it's not, I want to walk you through these steps. If you don't have it, if you go and do some of these steps and you don't see GBoard anywhere, you can always download it from the Play Store, and it's free, like Google apps are. So next, let me show you how to do this. Once you have it downloaded, and you can do these steps and just see if GBoard's in there already and then download it if you need to. But we're just assuming now that you have GBoard in there. So you're going to go to the Settings app on your phone. And it's good to know where that is for many things, but for this, it's the one that looks like a gear. It could be in any sort of screens on your phone. Just look for the gear. I put it on the front of mine to make it easy to find. So once you click on that gear, the settings, you're going to be in the Settings app, and you're going to scroll down to where it says General Management. If you have an older Android phone, you might not see General Management. You might see instead something that says Languages and Input. So either one of those that you see, go ahead and click on that. For newer phones, it should say General Management. And you'll see too, if you need sort of like a sign to which one it is, it says Language and Keyboard underneath. So that's where you're going to want to go, is that General Management, or again, Languages and Input. So once you click on that, you're going to see Keyboard List and Default as a category. Sorry, my error is a little in the middle there, but it's meant to go to Keyboard List and Default. Okay, so you see on here, I have Samsung Keyboard and GBoard. So what I want to do here is just make it so GBoard is my default. GBoard's the one that it uses automatically. And what you want to do is make sure your default keyboard is listed as GBoard. If it's listed as something else in here, just click here and see if you have GBoard there. Now's the time, if you don't see GBoard, that you can go back to the Play Store and download it. So make sure that you have your default keyboard as GBoard. And also down here, where you have your GBoard settings, it should say multilingual typing. So that's going to make it just easier for you to for it to like offer you suggestions of words to switch between keyboards. I think the default should be multilingual typing for GBoard anyway, but just make sure it says that. If not, click on that and see what your options are and select multilingual typing. So once you have GBoard turned on, so here you see the blue here, that means you've got it turned on. That's good. You want to make sure it's turned on and that it's your default. And then once you've done that, you're going to just click here where it says GBoard. Okay, so you're going to click on GBoard. And this is what will come up. So you see here that you have the language setting. There's a bunch of different preferences in here, and you can explore these on your own. So not all of these are about language. It's just about the way that your GBoard is set up. There might be things that you want to change on that. You know, feel free to play around with the settings for that. We're just focusing on the languages for right now. So to add a new language keyboard, you're going to go ahead and click where it says Languages, and it will give you a list of languages. So I have suggested languages on here. My default is English. It suggests Spanish, US Spanish, and I'll explain that in a second. But I would scroll, if you scroll down on here, you see how many A's there are. There's so many languages on here, just about anything you can imagine, things I did not even know existed. There are tons and tons of language options. So whatever it is that, whatever language you're using, whatever, there's even like dialects and regional, like specific keyboards that I'll talk about in a second. But chances are, you know, if you're communicating in any other language or you're doing any sort of language learning, the language that you're using will be available as a keyboard on GBoard, which is really cool. So we're just going to click on the one we want to add. So I'm going to show you some of the examples of what that looks like. So if I click on Chinese, simplified Chinese, you'll see there are multiple options. So there's like the Pinyin keyboard. There's one where you can actually draw each symbol with in your handwriting and it'll convert it. There's a lot of different options for each of these things that you can scroll through and just look at what would be best for you in terms of how you set up your keyboard. But this is just to give you an example of, like, if we click on Chinese, there's many options again for like what the specificity of the keyboard is. So you can scroll through these, click on what you want to do, and then just click done at when you've added it the way you want it to be. Okay, and then that will add it to as the option for your keyboard. I'm going to show you Spanish too, just to show you one thing on that. So if you scroll down on the list all the way down to where it says Spanish, again, it suggested Spanish at the top, so I could just select Spanish, US Spanish from there. But if you go down to where it says Spanish just by itself, it gives you the options of Spanish, like from Argentina, Latin America, Mexico, Spain. So there's specific sort of setups for each of these, and especially when it comes to suggesting words when you're typing, if you have that turned on. It'll suggest words in the dialect that you're using. So it's very specific. So whatever you want it to be here, you just do that and then click done. You can't see that on here, but done, it'll be again, once you get all that set up, you'll just have a thing down here that says done to add it. So once you've added your language keyboard, I want to show you how you can switch languages on your keyboard pretty seamlessly. So to try it out, to test it out, just open any app where you would type. So I opened up my notes app here. It could be Gmail, it could be, you know, anything that has where you'd be typing. If you use a language learning app like Duolingo, you can open that up and play around with your keyboard in there. So what you're going to do is just open that up. So here I've got the notes app open, and you're going to click and hold the space bar until you see a screen that looks like this pop up that gives you choices of what languages to use. So remember, press and hold the space bar for just a second, and this should pop up. So it's giving me my choices here. So I have English, I have added the Spanish keyboard. I also have the Chinese, the simplified Chinese keyboard. Down here, I have my Samsung keyboards, which I could go ahead and take off because I'm not using those. Again, these are the GBoard ones. These are the ones I want to kind of stick to because I find it easy to move between those. So this, again, hold down the space bar for a second and this will pop up. And then once you do that, you just select the language keyboard you want to use. So I just selected Spanish. So now we're using the Spanish keyboard. And some of the things that you'll see that are different is we have the different N, we have different word suggestions here. It's pulling from a Spanish dictionary as opposed to thinking I'm typing in English, which is really helpful. So that's the way to move back and forth. You'll see here too, I have the ES and EN, so it's Espanol and English. So those are sort of the primary two that I'm moving between. If you need that reminder to what to click on, you can just go ahead and click on your space bar, and I can move back to English real easily, or I can move to Chinese easily as well. So just straight from the space bar. You may also see, and this is something that's going to come up with the iPhone as well. If you see right here, there's a thing right to the left of the space bar that looks like a globe. That's actually kind of the symbol for different languages as well. So if you have that, not all keyboards will have that. Even the GBoard, sometimes it gets hidden. If you have that, you can click on that and that'll allow you to change languages as well. So either of those. But if you don't see that, you just do the space bar, okay? And hold it, remember to hold it down until that menu comes up. So that's how you do it with GBoard, which is what I recommend using on Android, but you can also use it on iPhone. But I do want to also show you how to do it directly with the iPhone default keyboard, which is called the Magic Keyboard. All right, so here's how you're going to do it on iPhone with the built-in keyboard. So like I said, you can use GBoard here, but this is just the steps for the built-in one. So you're going to go to your Settings app, which is also a gear, and you're going to tap on General. All right, so Settings, General, and then you should see a menu that says Keyboard. All right, it's circled there. And you might click on this and see one that says Keyboards after this. You may or may not have that. It's just a second level of menu, but just keep following the ones that say Keyboard or Keyboard. Okay. And that will get you to this screen where it says Add New Keyboard, and that's what you want to do. So go ahead and click on Add New Keyboard. And as with SMART, you'll see that there's a long, long list of possible languages to add. So you want to click on the one that you want and then select the settings that you want to use. And again, look for the region or the dialect if that's an option that is the one that you want to use. It's even like, English here is broken down by multiple different regions so that it would, make word suggestions based on your location and what the dialect sounds like there or what words are used there. So click on whichever language you want to add. Once you've done that, it will be added to your keyboard. And in order to switch back and forth from different language keyboards on iPhone, what you're going to do is look out for that icon that looks like a globe, right? That will be on your keyboard there. So you just click on that and you can see that the list of available keyboards will come up and you can just move between them with that. That one's pretty straightforward. It's pretty straightforward with GBoard too. It's just a matter of getting GBoard set up as the default. So every now and then, the menus for this on your phone might look a little different than the ones that I'm showing you. But generally, if you look around for some of those sort of keywords, there might be a different heading for where your keyboards are or something like that, but sometimes it'll be underneath the heading. It just depends on the make of the phone. Some of them are more similar to each other than others. And if you are having trouble with iPhone, you can always set your keyboard there to GBoard as well and do it with the GBoard steps if you're into that. Well, hopefully this is helpful. And, especially again, if you're doing any learning or if you're just multilingual, this is really helpful. I know it can be hard to find, accented letters and specific things, otherwise if you're just using the US English keyboard. So this is just another option and hopefully one that you can use.